Dickerson. I'm currently studying to be an educational technology specialist at SUNY Potsdam. I completed my undergraduate degree at SUNY Canton for my bachelor's in adolescent education with a concentration in English. Today, we'll be talking about how AI has changed the world of teaching, and our guest is Ben Rawdon, and he is an instructional designer at SUNY Canton. Hi, Ben. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So can you tell us a bit about what you do and how it relates to AI?
Sure. So my official title at SUNY Canton is I am the Senior Instructional Designer for the Center for Learning Design, Innovation, and Online Instruction. It's basically a long-winded way to say that we're the Department of Online Learning. Um, so with AI, what we do is because AI is an emerging technology and it continues to evolve consistently, is we are frequently um, tasked with fielding questions from instructors, from fellow staff at SUNY Canton about how AI will affect not only the current um, courses at Canton, but any courses in the future, and as well as how AI is going to affect the campus community in general. So things like um, what we do is we usually have at least two sessions per semester where we will field questions from our faculty. We'll even have all sorts of workshops about different things that they can try in AI. We're always taking appointments with faculty if they see something in AI and that they want to incorporate into their courses. We'll try it out with them. We'll see, hey, let's see if this works. So that's where we are with AI is we're constantly um, on the forefront of the newest developments. I actually just finished the attending the SUNY Online Summit in Syracuse. So there is I got a whole bunch of new stuff for AI to try. So
It's fun. How would you define AI?
AI, artificial intelligence, is basically the first thing that always comes to mind when someone mentions AI, is like the Terminator movies. It is not like that.
Okay.
When I think of AI, I think of basically the next step in the evolution of technology. It's basic technology has always been the main purpose of technology has always been to assist humans in what they're doing. And I see this as just another tool for us to use. Uh, whether it be for generative AI, whether you need assistance in producing something, or even something as simple as a Google search. A lot of the times now you'll see when you do a Google search, all the first thing that comes up is an AI for their Google Gemini. So that's a lot of what so basically, my definition is um, just another way for technology to assist humans.
Okay. That sounds pretty pretty good. So the next thing we're going to talk about is how AI works.
Okay.
So how have you used AI in like your field?
In instructional design, AI is actually used quite frequently, and it's actually quite useful. Um,
Mhm.
for instructional design, you can actually run um, things like topics through an AI tool like ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot, and it'll give you ideas for things like assignments to complete. You could ask it for you could run different things like learning objectives through it, and it'll give you its interpretation of those learning objectives. It can give you suggestions on how to complete the learning, on how students can complete the learning objectives. And you can also run it through I personally use AI a lot when it comes to the composition of campus-wide emails that I send. Um, Not that I don't do them myself, but what I do is I usually write them in, or I write them up, and then I'll put them into AI, and I'll basically ask it to, is there a clearer way to say this? And sometimes it'll come up with something even better, and I'll incorporate those changes. Other times it completely misses the point, so I don't even use it. So for that it's hit or miss. Um, but a lot of the times with AI, we end up using it for um, constructive purposes. Like I mentioned earlier, we have instructors who have um, questions for us. Well, if it's something that like they're running out of, or not running out of ideas, but if they if they need ideas on certain things, if we can't think of something, we'll run it through AI and we'll be like, well, have you tried this? Have you tried this? Um, and a lot of the big thing is with AI in our field as well in education is um, a lot of people mention academic dishonesty. There are tools out there as well that we use and we gear the faculty towards to kind of cut down on the amount of academic dishonesty that takes place um, by using AI, by also having things like AI proofing assignments as well. So we give them ideas on how to, quote, AI proof their assignments as well.
Okay. I know we've talked about that in like my courses and stuff,
Yes.
but like academic dishonesty. What are the platforms that you use for AI?
The main platforms that I use for AI are ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot, Google Gemini. Um, Recently, I have used a couple of times, I've used a platform called InVideo AI, which will automatically generate video by scouring the web for different um, video sources. It's not entirely foolproof, um, but it is kind of the neat thing about that about in video is it without prompting, unless you tell it not to do this, it will actually add a voiceover for you based on what you give it. So an example when I first started using this for a course that I took through SUNY Center for Professional Development was go through a um, I had it tell a story of a uh, saber-toothed tiger who saw a orca jumping through the water or jumping out of the water in the Arctic. I know it sounds kind of random, but um, it had actually generated the video of a saber-toothed tiger, and then it would cut to scenes of an orca jumping out of the water. Now, it wasn't entirely foolproof because it would some shots would use a saber-toothed tiger, other ones it would use just a regular tiger, other ones it was a lion, which is kind of weird. And then they would show like three or four different kinds of whales. It wasn't just an orca. And then other times they just showed a landscape view of the Arctic. So it's not 100% foolproof. You have to go through, and if you want exactly what you want, you have to basically kind of narrow it down and narrow it down. And you have to have a lot of patience when it comes to using generative AI. But those are the major tools that I've used since I've started using AI um, in my line of work.
Do you have a favorite one?
Microsoft Copilot is actually my favorite one. Um, the main reason for that is since we are a Microsoft campus at Canton, we already have access to it anyway. And so I literally can just click one thing and I've got AI right at my fingertips. So it's just the quickest way and and it seems to do most everything that I ask it to do. So I tend to gear more towards Copilot than any other platform.
I assume most campuses use Microsoft for like their main like form, but I feel like it just pops up right away, like the Copilot. Like you don't even have to ask for it. Like you don't add it or anything.
It does. It does. Copilot is basically, if you use Microsoft, you're seeing Copilot as a little icon. In fact, I'm seeing it right now on my other monitor. It's kind of like a square that has a bunch of colors in it, and you'll see that just about everywhere in all of the Microsoft products. But yeah, you're right that a lot of the schools are Microsoft campuses. There are some schools that are actually Google campuses too, so they're probably going to gear more towards Gemini.
Mhm.
But I do, but yeah, the majority I would think are Microsoft campuses and Copilot. If you have a Microsoft account through your email, you've got access to Copilot. So
I feel like that's really helpful sometimes.
yes,
What do you think the main purpose is of AI?
I think the main purpose of AI is, like I said earlier, is just another tool for um, for the human race to use to help them out in everyday life. It's not like I mentioned earlier, the Terminator movies in 2029 when the entire Earth's gonna be run by robots and that whole thing. We're not gonna. I don't think we're heading towards a dystopian future when it comes to AI use, at least. Um, what I think the purpose of AI is, it's just like when typewriters were invented, when computers were invented, when any kind of technology was invented. It's basically used as a tool to help humans. It was never meant to replace humans.
Okay. Do you think in some form it's kind of like replacing other technologies or like replacing like communication?
In some ways, I do believe that. It's kind of when you have um, AI avatars that have been developed to kind of mimic human interaction. The thing that comes to mind with that is I know that there are some fast food places I know that have replaced the um, person at the drive-through with an AI um, avatar right at the drive-through, and I know that some locations of whatever chain it was, I forget exactly which one it was, but I know that it's that sometimes it required somebody to give their order 4 or 5 times, so it's not exactly foolproof. Um, but in some cases, I do think that um, it has replaced communication in some way, which in some ways it's a good thing because not every place can have, for example, like a 24/7 environment, kind of like a support thing. You don't have to necessarily have live humans in an environment 24/7, something like a customer support kind of thing. With AI, you could potentially have places open 24 hours a day, and you have the ability to have support um, at all hours of the day and night, which um, can be both a good thing and a bad thing.
I feel like some people are scared that that's what's going to happen. Like AI is going to take over the world.
Yeah, there is. I can see the skepticism when it comes to AI potentially um, replacing everybody, and we're all sitting at home just watching the computers run everything. But I don't think that'll ever completely happen. At least in our lifetime, it won't.
I don't think it'll work.
Exactly. I mean, somebody's got to tell it what to do. So, and
Yeah.
that's where we come in.
Yeah. Like I don't think it's going to work out.
Exactly.
What do you think the different uses are for AI? Like what are the main beneficial uses to use AI?
The main beneficial uses for AI, content generation. I do think that that is a big thing, especially with things like, again, ChatGPT, Copilot, going in basically asking AI to develop something or to say, like, I want to write like custom birthday party invitation or whatever, but I want it to sound like an old-timey 18th century kind of dialect. Can you come up with this? And it'll actually come up with it. So I do think that that is a um, good use for AI, is because I mean, we weren't around in the 18th century, so how do we know how it would talk? So, um, uh,
So the next thing we're going to talk about is how AI is being used in the classroom.
yes.
So what ways have you seen AI being used in the classroom?
I have seen AI used in the classroom in a couple of different ways. The big one, as I mentioned earlier, before, is the academic dishonesty. That is something that is a big concern in higher ed, um, where instructors can give out assignments, and all a student has to do is enter a prompt and put in. It'll spit something out. It'll and all a student has to do is change a couple of words, and wow, they've got a 10-page paper all at their disposal. Um, there are tools which will prevent that or will detect these kinds of assignments from um, coming through. I know, for example, at least for our campus, with Brightspace, we have Turnitin has an AI detection tool where if an instructor suspects that AI has been used, they can just look at the assignment, and it'll give them a likelihood of the percentage of how likely it is that a student used AI in this assignment, because it'll search the database and it'll say, well, hey, this sounds like this, it sounds like this sounds like this. That does bring the possibility of false positives. um, but that is but that's something that is usually dealt with on a case by case basis. Another thing with the academic dishonesty and just using a paper that it spits out is the accuracy of the information as well. One of my coworkers at SUNY Canton actually um, believes he tricked AI, because at one point he asked AI, this was back when ChatGPT, when the current version was 3.5. He actually asked ChatGPT, what version are you? And it said, I'm version 2.0. And he went back and he said, are you sure about that? And he goes, hey, well, you're right. I'm actually version 3.5. Thank you for questioning that. So, so um, it even corrects itself, which is kind of, so you have to question the accuracy of it sometimes. Sometimes if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So that's um, one thing that I've noticed with the academic dishonesty with AI. Another thing that I've actually encouraged use um, with AI is we have an instructor in our criminal justice department who was looking for different ways to um, kind of kind of like a new assignment for his um, class on serial killers and murderers and that kind of thing. So I came up with the idea and I said, well, what if you were to have your students go into ChatGPT and kind of get into a conversation with a serial killer, like pick like a famous serial killer and, you know, try to converse with ChatGPT as this individual. And so he tried that, and it actually worked out pretty well. They would pick um, certain famous serial killers out of history, and they actually would have brief conversations as if ChatGPT was the serial killer. It sounds kind of creepy, but I did, I I did think I did think that, and I was like, you know what? It sounds creepy, but it worked. Wow.
It seems like a fun
I
assignment. Like I would
what
like
was that?
that.
What was
Seems
that?
like a fun assignment.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know. I still don't know why I thought of that or how I thought of that, but he came to me with the question, and I knew that the course was on serial killers, and so it just came out. So
I feel like a lot of times, like we frown upon AI in the classroom, I feel like, but I think a lot of really good lessons can come from it, especially since there's so many different platforms you can use with the students. I think just the biggest worry is academic dishonesty. Because I know in the past, like I've had students who have just handed in things that like is definitely not their work. And it's just like, how do you go about that?
yeah, and I also consider it with the whole academic dishonesty. Nowadays, AI is the big hot button um, topic when it comes to academic dishonesty. Back when I was an undergrad 15 years ago, the big one was students just copy and pasting Wikipedia. So
Mhm.
so every generation seems to have that tool that they like to use to try to get around things. Who knows what it's going to be 15 years from now? So,
Yeah. I feel like it's always going to be there anyway. But I
yes.
feel like they make AI really easy to like track. So like when something is not their own work, like it's very simple for someone to look at it and be like, okay, I can put this into this platform and it's going to tell me that you used AI.
Yeah, and a lot of times when you put something through AI, it will actually give you like the source. It'll cite what source it used
Mhm.
in kind of little notations. So that's another way that if you do use AI, well, here's where it came from. So
How do you think most teachers use AI in the classroom?
most teachers would use AI in the classroom, I think, from personal experience. I do know that teachers do use AI when it comes to question generation, when it comes to assignments, when it comes to discussions, when it comes to quizzes. They'll use AI to say, like, I have a 10 question quiz coming up on such and such a topic using this textbook. What are some questions that I can ask on this quiz? And they'll come up with the questions for the quiz. So that's one way they could potentially use it, um, and how they do, and how at least one instructor that I've worked with has used it. Um, they'll also use it um, if they want to use AI constructively. Um, they will have assignments like the serial killer assignment. They'll um, come up with that. They'll also um, basically a lot of the generative AI, as they play around with generative AI, a lot of the times if they don't come to us, they'll come up with their own ideas and they'll ask their students to do something in AI. But sometimes also the students will go to the instructors and they will actually say, "Hey, I tried this," or "I did this in AI, and maybe this is something that we can do as a class or as an activity or something like that." So, um, some instructors I do know will not use AI whatsoever. Others are kind of hesitant about it, but they will use it. And then there's a handful that are so gung ho on using AI that they will encourage its use whenever possible, as long as the students are being honest about it. So I do think that the instructors do use AI constructively when they do decide to use it.
Do you think it's frowned upon to use AI as like an instructor and educator? Because I feel like a lot of educators will use it to like make lesson plans or grading or like build a rubric. But do you think like their institution would frown upon it?
I think they would frown upon it if they were relying entirely on AI. They're paying, the institution is paying the instructor to do the teaching. They're not paying the computer to do the teaching for the instructor.
Mhm.
So the institution will kind of see AI as another tool for the instructor to use. They won't necessarily stop them from
Mhm.
using it, but I think they're kind of wary as to, they're kind of like, okay, where is this going? How much of the content is generated from the instructor? How much is from AI? So there's kind of like this because it's still an emerging technology that it kind of keeps evolving. They're kind of struggling with keeping up with it. So when you think you've got a grip on it, all of a sudden it's advanced so far ahead that you have to go, all right, so we have to go back and we have to look at this again. So the institutions, they do try to keep abreast to this, but um, really it depends on, um, again, they're paying the instructor to do the teaching. They're not paying the computer to do the teaching.
How have you used AI in the classroom?
In the classroom, I have not used AI at all in the classroom. I graduated in 2020 from Potsdam in the master's program. So in the last 5 years, or 5 years ago, AI, the generative AI stuff just didn't exist. The
Mhm.
closest thing to it, I would say, would probably be Google searches. Because if you think about it, um, that is a form of AI, is a Google search. You just type in something and it would search the internet and it just pops something. Or so um, search engines would be considered AI, at least in my opinion. um, so if you want to go, that far, um, I guess the closest, the furthest the furthest extent, I should say, that I've used AI in the classroom would be search engines when it comes to doing research for projects and assignments and other things that I did when I was both an undergrad and as a grad student.
I know when I was in high school, AI wasn't really like around, but like when I was doing my student teaching, it became more popular, which kind
Hmm.
of became a problem because of academic dishonesty.
Yes.
But it was like such a new thing that like nobody really knew how to like go about it.
Hmm.
And like my host teachers were like, it was so new. Like nobody knew what to do. But when I got to grad school, I started learning more about AI. And like now it's like part of the classes where you learn about AI and like you use different platforms to like build lesson plans and like different things you can teach. So now it's like a little bit more interesting because it's like actually a part of our learning as an educator.
Yeah, and in 5 years, who knows what it's going to be, and everybody's going to be like 5 years from now, they'll be like, what did we do before this? It's kind of like computers. I mean,
Yeah,
it's kind of hard to remember a time that computers weren't part of the learning experience.
especially after COVID.
Yes, especially after COVID, exactly.
Do you think teachers enjoy using AI in the classroom?
Enjoy that is to me that I
You think
think
they like
I think it depends on the subject matter that they're teaching. Um,
it? Okay.
if it's more technology based, I'm sure they would enjoy it more. If it was something not as technologically advanced, I'm trying to think of some topics um, right now. So I'm sure like writing classes, they probably don't enjoy teaching
Mhm.
with AI because if you're I mean, because if you're teaching creative writing and you just have students running stuff through AI, that kind of defeats the purpose of creative writing because you're not the one that's being creative, the computer's the one that's being creative. So, um, that can be frustrating for instructors, I know. But then you also have the um, courses like cybersecurity, like criminal justice, um, things of that nature, where the use of AI is actually beneficial because you can actually work in tandem with AI to get a desired uh, answer or a product or something, you can actually work alongside AI to get exactly what you want. So,
Okay. Do you think students rely too much on AI these days to complete their work?
in some ways, I do believe that. Um, I do know in some institutions, um, the amount of students getting caught using AI to complete their assignments is higher than in others. Um, I do think that that there is kind of an over reliance. You kind of think, okay, so I have to write this paper. I'll just run it through AI. I'm done with the paper in 10 minutes, and so I can just go play video games. Well, that's not why you're pursuing a college degree, is to do your homework in 10 minutes and then play video games for the next 5 hours. That's not exactly why you're doing it. So I do believe that students, they kind of do uh, rely on AI a bit much. Um, but again, because it's a new thing, we all tend to go to through the new shiny gadget kind of thing. Um, and again, who knows, in a couple of years, it could be just an old fad and like, AI, why did I ever do that? So
I know I've had professors in the past that have like encouraged the use of AI to like
mhm.
complete assignments. Like if you're reading a book, like you can like use AI to look up like Spark Notes kind of like a summary
Yes.
or like just like completing assignments. They're like you can use this to take notes or you can use Grammarly to like edit work, like documents. I always just thought it was weird because like in some situations they're like don't use AI, and then in others they're like use it as a tool to help you.
Yes.
But like
Yes.
I don't know.
And that's another thing that that I've told instructors, that one of the main purposes of AI in education is um, customized learning, because
Mhm.
not all students learn the same. Not so there are some students who could run a something like an article that they're assigned to read online. They read like this 20-page article, and they have absolutely no idea what they've just read. Like they're in a
Mhm.
physics class or something. They just read this entire document. They have absolutely no idea what they just read. It's because, so what they can do is they can take that link to that document, and they can ask Copilot or ChatGPT to basically summarize it in X number of sentences, or even at like a certain grade level, like explain this to me at a fifth grade level. And it'll think for a couple of seconds and then it'll spit it out. So that's another way that students can customize their own learning by using AI.
I think it can be a really helpful tool if you use it correctly, but I think sometimes students just take it to like the extreme and they just have
Yes.
it do everything for them. And I think that's
Yes.
when it becomes a problem.
Yes. There's finding that happy medium. Once you've found
Mhm.
it, you'll know when you've found it.
Yeah. So the next thing we're going to talk about is how to implement AI into the classroom.
Mhm.
So, what are the best ways to implement AI into the classroom and why?
The best way to implement AI into the classroom, depending on the institution and depending on the level. Um, since I work in higher ed, I'm I kind of lean my bias more towards higher ed.
Mhm.
But most institutions now have some kind of department of online learning or instructional designers like myself or something along that line, um, to incorporate AI. Usually, um, they can come to us. We can, um, if we don't know offhand, we can do some investigating for them if they want to incorporate AI into their um, into their classroom, or they can do research themselves as well. There's no shortage of resources available online on how AI can be incorporated. And there are literally now thousands of tools in AI that they can use, and many of them they can be used at least on a limited basis for free. So they can play around with something, and if they don't like it, they can move on to the next thing, and if they don't like that, they can move on to the next thing, and so on and so forth until they either find what they're looking for, or they just say, you know what, it either doesn't exist yet, or this isn't going to work. But again, that depends on the institution and the instructor themselves. And of course, I speak for higher ed. K-12, I'm sure there's similar processes that they can go through with that. But at least with higher ed, that's how instructors can incorporate AI into their courses. And a lot of the times when when I suggest new things to instructors, I always suggest that they kind of gradually add it to their course. Don't just make a gigantic switch. Um, Another one of the topics that I like to talk about is gamification, and this kind of goes along with that. That at the very start, if you're introducing AI or something, start with one assignment and see how that goes, and then kind of build it from there.
Mhm.
So
I know, like I've read that like slowly integrating it definitely helps when implementing it. And then there's also like a lot of people talking about modeling AI. And what do you think a good way an instructor could model AI for their students would be?
for modeling AI, they can either for modeling AI, I think they can if they can let me just think here. They can they try to prompt things themselves. If they're expecting their students to do one thing in AI and then it does something totally different, um, that may catch them off guard or something. What they can do is they can put in all kinds of different prompts, like what are you looking for from your students? So they come up with some kind of prompts. They go like, all right, so what is, if I put this prompt in, what will it spit out? If I put this prompt in, what will it give me? So basically, it gives them an idea as to what to kind of look for when it comes
Mhm.
to um, modeling AI for their students if they put in this kind of prompt. And a lot of AI, what it'll do is it's constantly learning. So so again, if you start with a vague topic and you can just continually ask it questions until it gives you either exactly what you're looking for or something pretty close to it. So what I always tell instructors when they're doing something like that is try this first. Don't have your students be the guinea pigs when it comes to that. Try this first and see if this works for you. If it doesn't, then push it by the wayside. If it does, then keep going until you found something that you like.
Do you think it's important for instructors to set like boundaries for using AI in their classroom?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And they should make it very clear if their institution does not have a policy on AI or they don't have something in their syllabus on AI, they should be coming up with something themselves as well. If you absolutely do not want AI to be used in your course, make that known on day one of your course, and have it in the syllabus as well that the use of AI will not be accepted in this course. I have assisted some instructors in adding that language into their syllabi because they've said absolutely not. I do not want them using AI. Um, for others, just make sure that you have the absolute clearest expectations on how you expect AI to be used. Um, that's really the best thing you can do for your students. Because the majority of students, if you ask them not to use AI or to use AI only in a certain way, they will accept that. They'll
Hmm.
they'll be like, okay, if you don't want me using AI, I won't use AI. So
The next topic we're going to talk about is the benefits and disadvantages of AI in the classroom.
mhm.
So, what do you think the main benefits of using AI are in the classroom?
The main benefits I do believe of using AI are um, I know I mentioned this earlier, the generative AI um, aspects where you can um, ask it to, you can run something through ChatGPT and it'll actually um, either give you suggestions or actually fix something for you, either grammar wise or punctuation or something like that. I think it's incredibly beneficial, especially for um, some individuals who kind of struggle with spelling or punctuation or things of that nature, or grammar. Um, I think it can also be beneficial for students when it comes to understanding certain things with their education. If they're in a physics class or a chemistry class or some advanced course that they have absolutely no idea what they're learning, um, they can go to AI and they can, um, while not necessarily replacing the role of a tutor, they can go into AI and they can actually ask AI to either reword something, or they can give them a whole bunch of resources to use, or it can explain something in language that they can understand. So it can actually supplement the learning for the student as well. Um, I used the term customized learning before, and that's basically what it is. That's those to me, those are the big advantages for AI for students.
Do you think there's benefits for the teachers as well, like building lesson plans and like helping them create like their units and everything, and also building like they can like build customizable like ways to help specific students as well?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. If you have students, neurodivergent students, you can have you can run things through AI and it'll give you ideas on how to um, create assignments specifically for them, or you can have assignments or language for assignments that you can use, or you can go like, okay, I have these four topics to that I need to cover in a particular module, or three different topics to discuss in a module. Um, how can I break this down? And you can enter that, and it'll give you ideas on how to successfully break that down. If you give it specific time frame, like I have these topics to teach in this amount of time, how can I break this down? It'll actually give you a week by week or a day by day breakdown as to how you can do this, and then you can customize it based on what you know, because unless you add in the dates for
Mhm.
they're not going to give you the exact dates. So you kind of have to go, okay, so I can do this. Oh, but we have spring break this week, so I can't do it then, and so that's how instructors can use AI in their courses as well.
What do you think the disadvantages are of AI in the classroom?
Disadvantages. Um, I know I keep mentioning it, but the whole academic dishonesty thing is the biggest disadvantage, and it's the biggest concern when it comes to instructors and administration at institutions, is the academic dishonesty, and um, also the accuracy of the information. Because just
Mhm.
because you put something into AI and it spits out something doesn't mean that it's right. Just like the internet in itself. I mean, if it's
Mhm.
on the internet, it's got to be true, right? Nope. so, um, to get around that, what I always recommend is, okay, if AI gives you something, go to Google and search for basically the same thing and see if another source gave you that answer correctly or gave you what you're looking for. So while you while AI can be helpful, it's also limited in the information that it's given, and it gets cut off with each version as to how recent that information is. So something that gets discovered today isn't necessarily going to be in AI now, the current version of, let's say, ChatGPT with the current version 4.0. It won't be in that version. It'll probably be in the next one, but it won't be in the current one. So the accuracy of information is definitely a big disadvantage, that what it's spitting out may not be the most accurate information. Like I mentioned earlier, my coworker who asked ChatGPT what version it was, and it thought it was an older version than it really was. So
Do you think benefits outweigh the disadvantages?
I do. I do. When used when used with the best intent, the benefits to AI do outweigh the disadvantages. Again, it depends on your intent. If you have malicious intent, then then the disadvantages are going to outweigh the advantages. But if you go in with the best intentions in mind, um, then I do think that the advantages do outweigh the disadvantages.
Okay. Do you have any other thoughts or anything you want to add about AI?
AI is not going away anytime soon. um, uh, my f- my father was big on trying to predict when things would be fads. He would always say like, "Oh, these microwaves, these aren't going to last." Or when the internet came around, he was like, "Oh, yeah, I give it 5 years and then the internet will go away." Yeah, that was 30 years ago, Dad. So, um, but AI is here and AI is not going away anytime soon. It's just going to continue to evolve and evolve and evolve. And while I don't think it's going to get to the point where AI is going to wipe out everything on Earth, it is going to become more and more prevalent in our daily lives.
Okay. My last question is, do you think AI should be used in the classroom and why?
I do believe that AI should be used in the classroom with an asterisk. As long as it's being used for constructive purposes and as long as it's being used for the right reasons,
Hmm.
I do believe that AI belongs in the classroom, and depending on the subject matter as well. Depending on the subject matter, I know I mentioned a couple earlier, um, but in some topics AI is appropriate. For others, AI isn't appropriate.
Hmm.
But I think for the most part, AI does have a place in the classroom nowadays.
Okay. That's it. So thank you, Ben, for coming in and talking with us today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Great.